Wellington Access Radio is live on 106.1 FM, right across Wellington region, and online via podcast. Just check our website, accessradio.org.nz.
Welcome back to the Blackhouse. You're with us on 106.1 FM, and I'm in the radio station here with Sounds by Somewhere, Modi,
Hello.
And our guest today, Mandella Lokeng Ogwech. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I just had to point out that the spelling is Mandella.
Is that for which one?
For Mandela.
Mm-hmm.
It's spelled with
M-A-N-D.
two L's instead of
It's
one L.
2 L's.
Yeah, added a second L because the original one has one L, so just to add a little difference.
Okay. I wonder why it's like, do you have one L on your Facebook?
No, I have two L's.
You have two L's, okay. Because I was just copying from your Facebook and I didn't even do it right. How about that? All right, it shows that I've been really busy. What about you, Modi?
Oh, yeah, up and down, busy, but yeah, loves and moves on. Work out in gym, try to get some...
Yes, I've heard about this working out in the gym business. When do I get my free lessons?
Ooh. Yeah, we got to have a plan for that.
No, here comes with the plans. Meal plans, workout plans, diet plans. That's Modi's thing. Anyway, I think Agent Orange.
Oh yeah,
Agent Orange is out of the White House. There was a collective sigh of relief across the globe. I think, not just America.
Yeah, sure.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, that was everywhere.
Yeah?
Even New Zealand, two people, they were just like really keeping an eye, like what's going to happen? What's going on? So yeah, it's good like to see some movement, and to see some changes. So that's cool, I think.
Yeah, I think that it's probably a positive thing because, I mean, the riot. What was next? The Civil War? The second. I don't know. Like that was just like a little bit unreal to watch.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're digressing.
Yeah.
I want to get on to talking to our first guest, and as I said, his name's Mandella, and he's been very involved in organising youth events in the African community. You're an admin on a page called African Ballers, is that right?
Yeah.
And is that...
A New Zealand African Ballers.
New Zealand African Ballers, and it's basketball focused, yeah?
It's mainly basketball focused, sports focused, but because Africans in New Zealand don't really have a media platform or anything to expose or display the athletes that are in New Zealand that are actually performing at the highest caliber. There's a few players that play basketball, some play soccer, some play rugby, but there is no recognition from the New Zealand community or outside. So maybe like we're looking at other ways of like displaying all the African talent that's actually out there that's performing inside and outside New Zealand if we can. Whatever we can get our hands on, we're going to show it to the people so that they can see there is talent that's growing from here that's in the local community. Yeah.
So like how's that page performing at the moment? Are you getting a lot of engagement and from people, like other African athletes around New Zealand, or you can tell me a little bit more about that?
The good thing is there is some athletes involved with it. There's a young athlete, Yuat Alok. He's currently playing somewhere in Florida in one of the states as a college, as a basketball player. He's 6'11", still growing. He's a young man, 19 years old. So he's next year hopefully playing in draft lottery or looking at prospects of playing NBA sometime in the future.
Wow.
And he started his own academy, the Champions Academy as well. So he's got an Instagram page, so if people want to follow him, it's Champions Academy in New Zealand, Auckland. So you can look after and support the brother as well. There's a few other people doing their own thing. Angelo Robertson and Brian McFadden. They work with the basketball academy in New Zealand as well, in Wellington, ASB. They send some stuff and they're already doing their own work, starting from groundwork, training kids. If Africans actually want, there's opportunity for Africans to actually have a grassroots and go in places. He's worked with Stephen Adams. He's worked with other athletes to get them in places as well. So there's a loop, there's a pathway for athletes and Africans to actually go to ASB, train with Brian McFadden, get some basketball academy, get some skills, and maybe, get some grassroots and have a pathway into doing something better for themselves. If it's not basketball, there's other things at ASB as well. So we're trying to get the African kids back into playing sports and looking at their own future and doing what they want. You can try one thing. If you're good at it, maybe you can go further with it, make money and look after your own family too.
So that's Brian McFadden, and who was the other guy? Anthony?
Kenny McFadden.
Kenny McFadden.
Is the coach that works at ASB.
Okay.
And Angelo Robinson is another former basketball.
Oh, all right. Because I remember Angelo and Kenny McFadden from about the 90s.
Yeah,
I'm sure I've seen them play.
But
90s, even earlier.
They have very good basketball knowledge. Very good basketball knowledge.
Okay, well, also, I wanted to mention that you were into organising beach barbecues and other community events. You also worked with other young men and women that rallied together into discussions regarding our African community councils of Wellington and how that can improve. But in this interview, I'm really wanting to focus on your drive and passion for doing the voluntary work you do in the community. But before we even get onto that, I want you to tell us a little bit about who you are and what your journey to Aotearoa was about. Like, what were the life changes and stresses that led your family to coming to New Zealand in the first place?
Oh, you want me to go through my birthplace and steps, or would you just like to broaden it out a little bit?
As much as you like. You can say whatever you want. That's the beauty of this radio station. You can just say whatever you want, Mandella.
About me is, I'm not too sure. My memory is very expensive, so I remember a lot of my growing up. Mm-hmm. So I can remember back from as far as to say, coming from Sudan, I was pretty much, my mother had me, she was in labor while she was on a plane to Uganda. Mm. So I grew up with my grandparents first and my uncle Paul Odera. Mm-hmm. He raised me up sort of for a while, for a couple of months, and then I moved with my aunties and uncles. But I lived there with a few cousins. I looked at them as my brothers pretty much, because for them, or for me, I didn't have any brothers at all. That was my first family. So I didn't know I had an older brother. I did not know I had another family. In my eyes, those were my family pretty much. Victoria, Brenda, and Paul, if I can remember their names correctly. 2 girls and 1 guy. So I grew up with them for a couple of months, and then next thing you knew, my family was telling me, you're being introduced to your other brothers and sisters. So I met my mum, and sometimes there's a natural connection. You know who your mum is straight away, and there's that bond that you can never separate between kids and their mothers. Straight away I knew who my mum was, hugged her, loved her forever. I met my other brother, Francis. She was pregnant with him at that time. That's why she had to go away sometimes, because she was pregnant with him at that time. So I met him. We lived in Uganda. Life was good. Crime was high as well. You remember in Uganda, after Idi Amin left the country, the same guy that's still in presidency right now, M7, M7 was running the country, and the country was in disarray. Rebels were doing their own things, so my father's shop was where I'm running to. A few things went out of place, so my father thought it was a smart move to Kenya. While we were moving to Kenya, they were having, they had my younger brother before we moved to Kenya, Charles. And from there, we moved to Kenya, tried to become and start the refugee progress. While in the process of doing that, we had another brother called Brian, so he was a Kenyan. So we have brothers that are split from...
Right, just because of the transitory nature of everything.
So we've never really had one spot to stay and call home, but we've called a lot of places home. We got to Kenya, we called it home, Kakuma. E4 moved across from there, then we flew.
Kakuma is the camp.
It's a camp.
I know a lot of people that stayed in Kakuma.
A lot of people that I've met in Australia and New Zealand that We reunited pretty much from camp.
They've even got a Facebook page.
We've got a website.
Yeah. They've got a Facebook page.
Almost each camp has their own Facebook site.
Yeah.
Like Kakuma 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, because they're all grouped up in different sections. And the funny thing is, they're all separated into their own different races too. I was a weird kid. I spoke to almost every nationality. I learned Dinkin because I was almost in the community all the time. I was speaking Somalian. At one point, I was fluently speaking Somalian. Like, I would actually hang out the Somalian, translating for people that weren't speaking Somalian. So there was a war-torn sort of feeling sometimes as well, because the different races are segregated, right?
And this is in the camp.
This is in the camp. So
right.
The camps all have different races from different parts of Africa.
Yeah.
Sometimes if something goes off in one of their countries, that feeling is reiterated in the community, in the camp as well.
In the camp, okay.
So there's wars and things going on. There'll be days where we went and camped out at the Somalian house because it was safer to be in their community than it was to be in ours.
Right.
There'll be times where we harbored Somalians because it was safer for them to be in ours than it was to be in theirs.
Right.
And this happened in various different forms.
And this is because of what was going on back?
What was going on outside the camps.
Right, okay.
Each country had their own war that was still going on. And because of some race did something to another race, now you are all in camps and there's a race across from you that has a problem with this race. You have to find a safety zone. Either you're part of the race that's going to get attacked, you have to move out of your compound. Not everyone's part of the violent nature, but there's people amongst their community that will go for the war. And that's what we have to avoid, because when they go through that, they burn everything across the things too. So we, in ways, got accustomed to seeing things going.
That's going to sound really funny on air.
It sounds funny, but you know what I'm saying, though? Like, it became normal for us. Like, when we hear it happening, we just ran.
No,
It was like become like a customer, you know when it's happening. As long as it's not happening to your people, you can avoid it, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So war will come to you, another person's community, and you'll be out of the fire line. You could be standing there watching it happen in between two people.
Wow.
And that's pretty much how it happened. But we moved from there, came to New Zealand, I think 2000, at the change of the decade, pretty much. We left on the 29th of December, arrived here on the 2nd of December.
Right.
Because of the stop off.
2nd of Jan.
We stopped off in Dubai for a day or a couple of hours, and then stopped off in Australia, then stopped here. And because of the day delay, we lost a day in the air, and we took 2 days to get here. So we arrived on the 2nd of January. So we had no New Year's.
Yeah.
But we went to Mangere, where all immigrants, or most immigrants, went for the process. From there, we got delegated sponsors. Everyone got someone that could help them and try and integrate them into the community. We had this guy called Brian Wilson. So yeah, they helped us out a lot, and I'll speak more about them when we come back.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We're just going to go to the first song break. I'll introduce this one, ready?
All right.
Do you want me to introduce it?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Okay, so our first song break is somebody who it seems like everybody in this room has something in common with. We actually know him.
Yeah.
Little Spacely. And he's from Liberia, based out of Western Sydney. He has made his presence known in the Australian rap scene for the last half decade, with releasing a constant barrage of trap bangers and steadily building a foundation for himself in the Australian landscape with collabs with the likes of Manu Crooks, B Wise, and Blessed. He is the one to watch in 2021, and this is his song Soju.
You know it's not 48 shit. BDG 4L. Hey, when I hit the road, then we slide, that's a rollerblade. Tequila sipping, mommy E, I tell her underlay. I'ma tell her, keep it moving. Get the gust, make it rain on a sunny day. Dressed in black with the G's in the truck. Swerving lanes when I squeeze on the clutch. Flies fuck up with the leaf in the blunt, then I'm deep in the cut. Double figures when we stomp. Whoa. I feel like 50, that's a nerd too. Me and Peter eating food, sipping soju. Flow retro, but I'm killing up the new school. Running lap, me and Rainbow on the oval. Give me my space, I'm a real nigga. Back up, talk less if I deal with ya. If you don't see the vision, you a real tripper. Turn the lights on, take a clear picture. Surfing with the click, I think I won the case. Free your mind, don't let them keep you cage. Get the bag for a better pay. Look into the sky for a better day. I've been reppin' 40, ayy. Shooter, fuck out, Simon says, fuck the drama, bitch, hey. Hit the bank, then I make the noise levitate. Hit the road, then we slide, that's a rollerblade. Tequila sipping, mommy E, I tell her underlay. I'ma tell him, keep it moving. Get the gust, make it rain on a sunny day. Dressed in black with the G's in the truck. Swerving lanes when I squeeze on the clutch. Flies fuck up with the leaf in the blood, then I'm deep in the cut. Double figures when we stomp. I keep my mind on my money and my money in the shoebox. No mechanic, but we rolling with the two-tuck. Real comfy, never stressed, never too fussed. Even when I'm chilling, the verses are always too tough. Organize a couple drops, do it walkie-talkie. Shh, settle with the talking. They ain't got their own style, please get them off me. I like my stack extra thick, extra saucy. Swerving lanes, double figures when we stunt. When I stunt, catch shivers, break figures when I'm done. I ain't done, still flipping hella trash in the dump. Made man, I was really at the back like a trunk. Whoa. I've been reppin' 40, ayy. That's the curd out, never break. Fuck the drama, bitch, hey. Hit the bank, then I make the noise levitate. Hit the road, then we slide, that's a rollerblade. Tequila sipping, mommy E, I tell her underlay. I'ma tell him, keep it moving. Get the gust, make it rain on a sunny day. Dressed in black with the G's in the trunk. Swerving lanes when I squeeze on the clutch. Flies fuck up with the leaf in the blunt, then I'm deep in the cut. Double figures when we stomp. Whoa.
Hey, and you're back on 106.1 FM. Well, we've been talking a little bit with our friend here, Mandella, and what I do know about you is that you're very interested in community work. Like I said at the top of the hour, you're part of the revamping of what's happening in Wellington with the ACCW. But I'm really interested in, like you've done all barbecues and you've organised events and stuff like that. I'm really interested in knowing what got you first enthusiastic about community work and especially volunteering, because it's not usual to see young guys, especially your age, doing volunteer work. Church, yeah, I know in churches and stuff they have a lot of youth guys that organise within youth movements, but you're actually doing something that's a little bit broader than just the religious thing. Mm-hmm. So, where did your passion for being involved come from?
It's hard to really answer that question because I don't think I was always one to try and say I wanted to work as a community service or be involved with any community council work. It's just I've grown up in, how would you say, a traditional sense of African upbringing where I was always around the community. So I don't know, even though I've moved from places, there was always the setup of a community that looked after each other. And I'm not too sure how it worked, but it was always the setup of people sitting together, talking things out and sorting things out in a way where it was more mutual and communal for everyone else. And when we came here, we had different Africans, Zimbabweans, Nigerians, all kinds of races. We all had multicultural days where we all sat together, where we got together. As much as there wasn't a real community, there was a sense of a community of Africans that we could say that we come together. We had holiday programs. We had other African events, more than just the Africa Day thing that we were saying. We had a community in our own community. The Sudanese had their own community that we can come together, have a barbecue. People will call meetings. The kids will come see each other. We used to have uncles. They weren't the best role models, but they were uncles still. And for us, growing up, we seen them as a representation of us and made us feel more, how would you say it, we belonged in this country. We had someone else that pretty much stood for us, that can lead us in a pathway forward. And that sense of community for kids is very important because it's a sense of our identity. And some of us growing up here, the moment we've seen some of our community disappear, and we've been growing up seeing some of this thing happen with divides in our own community and the split within tribal and racial sort of, there's a lot of things that could have happened, but we grew up as kids, they don't assume that we see everything. We do see, we might not know the exact answers, but we're seeing that divide that happened, and we don't really want to see people separate. we might be okay with people going their own ways just to do what's better for them, but not in a way where there's ill feelings left behind. We must say that no matter which journey you go, I'll always be family to you. I'll always have a link to you. And this is the relationship that some of us actually built in, the relationship in Blacktown that some of the boys built on there.
Yeah.
We had a family feel of the boys that met up, no matter who you were or where you came from, we looked after each other. And this was something that I couldn't understand, how kids, ourselves, our own age, we created a community amongst ourselves, and the elders couldn't keep this because it's simply word of mouth that helped us keep this thing. The idea is that we looked after each other, never above you, never below you, always beside you. Those were the things that we lived by.
Oh, wow.
So what do you think, what do you see happening on the street here now in Wellington then? Do you think the same sort of thing that was happening? Because I was going to get to that a bit later, because I remember when I was in Australia, I thought that the African communities, because they're so much bigger, there was a lot more sort of unorganised organisation going on. It might not have been official in the sense that we're trying to make things official here, but it was functioning. And I'm wondering, what do you see happening here for young people in Wellington? Do you think that
young people don't really have any options to look for? We've been trying to talk to people. We've been prodding for information. We've been seeking involvement in our own communities. But because the way that things have happened in the past, we have roadblocks, we have obstacles, we have bridges that we cannot create ourselves because of people that are sitting in positions and been doing things for a long time. And we're not trying to say out of disrespect, but there's this, our elders have come here, and in all rightful ways, they've led us to the right places and have ideas that are very useful and very powerful for long term. But the ideas that some of them are keeping and holding with them are also what is restricting some of us from going anywhere, because they're still not willing to see the youth as a possible means for their answers for the future. Because African beliefs has always thought that, yes, elders have the way and they know the way forward, but eventually the youth will come with a way that can help us go forward from the place that we are now. Because we've been here for a long time. In my eyes, sometimes almost going backwards, because we're losing the talent that actually come and go somewhere else. We have a lot of African talent that are somehow submersing in the New Zealand community and submersing in the Australian community. Why? Because it's easier to do that than it is to represent your own culture. Why? Because your culture doesn't really exist. Who are you representing? Israel Adesanya could say he represents the African community or the Nigerian community, but there's no real community that comes together and says we're doing this regularly on our own, and the government recognizes it as a regular registered thing. It's all behind the scenes, and there's probably one or two people that are recognized as council members, and there is no real community. I'm not trying to go too far into some of these, but there's a lack of community for a lot of Africans, and that's why the youth are actually disengaged in a way from the people involved in community, but so engaged with each other because they're looking for a way to stay together. The youth are so connected, the elders don't realize it. Half of the kids know each other. Maybe 99% of the kids know each other or speak to each other, but the elders themselves only speak to 10% of the people they know. So that's the difference that's going on here. We are trying to bridge the gaps for the elders and try to show them we're united. If you guys can show the same thing, we can all come back to the same table, then we can all find a way forward. And these are some of the answers that the elders need to hear, but whether they're willing to hear, we'll see in time.
Yeah, Mandela, just talking about the young people, and about how they divided the community, what's going on. What do you think happenings that need to be improved? What should we do to improve for this, to save the youth and our community? Where do you think that the gaps is outreach, something like that? Where do you think what to do?
Well, the answer comes from involvement from youth and the people that have not been involved, as in I'm also speaking about the factor of women have to speak for their own rights. It's good that we have boys and men speaking on things on behalf of other people, but at the same time, we need to hear the voices that speak for the victims that have been suffering in New Zealand, because as a society, we have some things that we have been stereotyped and generalized by, And some of our youth don't agree and think that we actually stand by those things. Some of the people growing up here don't stand by a lot of things that we've been stereotyped and generalized for. So we're hoping that we can have the people speak on behalf of the people that represent these factors, not just elders.
Yeah, so you did mention before about some certain things about what's going on between the elderly and the youngs, how they see the community and how you try to challenge it. In my vision, just for the question what I can ask you too, what do you think for some of these main issues that are not being addressed by white New Zealand communities, how we can go further from here? Like, what do you see yourself for this?
Well, I think if the African community can build a board of trustees that can overlook some of the things that we're talking about, then we can build forward a way where we can actually put the issues down, talk about it ourselves, and then put it to the right places and the right avenues to actually deal with it. Because all these issues, the problem is we're just talking about it. We've actually never put it down on paper to a council, and the council has not even looked at anything. We proposed meetings. We haven't had one meeting, let alone an election.
Yeah.
So these are the lack of things. There's no communication at all. So if we can find some form of communication, create a base where the Board of Trustees of African members are looking after, or they're tasked with looking after the community and being visible to the community for them to reach up to.
All right. Oh, well, cheers very much for sharing for that. Yeah, you're still listening to 106.1 FM. So, yeah, we should just get back. I'm trying to get used to get comfortable in this situation over here. Yeah. But, yeah, thank you for having me, too.
Did you want me to...
I'm having fun here.
Introduce the next song?
You can introduce it.
Okay, so the next song is by Jada Woods. It's called Selfless. He is a R&B artist based out of Sydney, Australia. He is of South African descent. His blend of futuristic and electronic sounds and alternative R&B has given him a unique take on the R&B scene currently in Sydney. This is his song Selfless, produced by Lucian Blomkamp. So you might heard that name because it's been on tracks such as Free by Black. So if you know Black, this is the guy that produces for him. So this is his song Selfless.
Wow.
Way too bad at goodbyes, crying on the other side. Girl, you know you're killing me. All I see is anger when I'm looking into your eyes. This bag has got a heavy weight, and I needed you as my escape, but you couldn't do the same now. Now you're asking me to stay. And when you wake up in the morning and your heart is found a rhythm, by the time that you be calling, know that it'll be too late and I'll be gone. And when you wake up in the morning and your tears are like a river to a feeling of regret and sorrow, knowing that you left me on my own. 'Cause I don't wanna be the one that has to show you love the way it should be. And I don't wanna be so selfless I can't fall in love because you hurt me. Yeah, arms to my shoulder in this stormy winter weather, like might just catch a plane just to see you in the winter fly. Higher than an angel, had me crashing through the ceiling, right? Is it really right? It ain't really right. Thought you wanted me, thought you wanted us, but you wanted you, thought you had enough. Gave my heart, but you couldn't really do the same. Now you wanted me to stay. And when you wake up in the morning and your heart's found a rhythm, by the time that you be calling, know that it'll be too late and I'll be gone. 'Cause I don't wanna be the one that has to show you love the way it should be.
Hi, you're back on the air.
Whoa, what happened there? We stuck a little bit.
We're back on the air with the Blackhouse on 106.1 FM. Hey, somewhere you gonna ask a question?
Yeah. So just going on to what you're talking about, community and that. Being a person that's born here, I've got a mother that's also raised here, so I'm sort of third generation here. I just wanted to talk to you about, like, what do you see going forward about bringing community and bringing all these, bringing us together? Because from what I can see is that there's a lot of people here that, one, I think they don't have a lot of opportunities, or they're not really given many opportunities to go further than going to uni, or they have this period of, say they hit 21, they don't have jobs, or they're not really given those opportunities to go forward. So I wanted to know, is there anything that you've thought or you've been thinking about that can help the young people here that are going through these type of issues?
Well, hopefully, if all works out, then we can unite the elders and the youth and everyone else, bring them to the table. My hope is we can tap into what the government's already been providing for immigrants and people that come off immigration sort of purposes. Yeah, that our councils and elders have not really tapped into, because there are resources and things that we can actually provide for our own community. We can create a structure where there's some sort of committee or council that looks into providing a hall, maybe even a training center, a resource center. All of these small things, and create events that African
Please give credit to the person who came up with that community center idea.
Hey.
Nobody's stealing ideas here today. That was my idea, people.
Okay, thank you. Community hall.
I wanted a hall. I wanted male and female toilets. I want a kitchen. I want a basketball court, and I want a soccer field. And
Well, imagine all of these things. 'Cause I know that one thing is the Pacific Islander community, they have a few things in their own revenues that maybe even be in the names of Samoans and Tongans. And I'm not just naming a few names. Chinese have their own things. So there is government resources that can help communities build their own sort of identity.
And I think the fact that they consider themselves all Pacifica, because they're not under just Samoan or thing, I think that same thing needs to happen to African. We can't just be splitting us our community groups up.
Because then the funding is now smaller and then looked at in a different format. But if the government automatically looks at everyone as an umbrella sort of a problem to look at to start off with. There's something sanctioned for us as an African community. Then if we're a bigger community or a bigger group and we're vibrant and active, then the government will look at it. And these are the things that people have to remember. The activeness of the community, and the more visible they are, then the government looks at them. And these are some of the things that is going on in the community, because the community themselves, they're not being presented to the government. The government does not see what's truly happening. So then the people in councils, how would you say it, don't necessarily have to give the proper numbers of what's going back and forth. Because the people in the community are not really going back and actually asking questions or showing themselves in front of government. But if we have a council of representatives that are always active, always there, and people can always say that these are the guys that are standing for this, then we can have people that are accountable for transferring funds and helping people get these resources to them. Ask the right questions and actually get the right answers.
So, because, I think that what the point that you brought up about us not diverging into little tribalized groups is quite an important one, because even at colonization,
Sorry guys, we can hear you.
Even at colonisation, sorry, we just had a little bit of a technical technical problem there.
I don't know what's going on. We could hear other people talking on the next room. I was like, what's going on? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, like even at colonisation, after colonisation, Māori realised Māori weren't Māori when colonisation happened. Māori were different tribal groups. So even after colonisation, Māori realised that they needed to unite to be able to stand up to colonising forces and influences. So, I think that it happens across the board with everybody, every ethnic group. And I'm wondering whether the different countries that create that have created the continent of Africa, right, that are in the continent of Africa, and all those different groups that have come down here are still not really realizing the importance of this unity. Like it's almost like lip service. It seems like unity seems like a lip service word. Yeah. We talk about it, but are we actually doing it? Because as people that have grown up here, I've never actually seen anybody from, say, another ethnic group's community actually say, hey, you're supposed to be, getting something from this because we're all united, we're all Africans. Like, sure, for parties and that, but when it comes to real things, like I actually had to find out about the free driving lessons that are available to people, but it wasn't actually
it's not told out to everyone. Some people only finding out because the people that know are giving it to the people that they want them to know. And this is what's happening. It's sort of the government is giving things and presenting people with opportunities, and it's not going or distributed to everyone fairly. There's a lack of transparency and there's a lot of mistrust that's going on. So I don't really want to paint the whole African Council as people that haven't worked in the way that it's fair.
But is it the African Council, or is it like, I just thought this is just a general thing because...
I'm speaking in broader general of all the African communities that have leaders that are big enough to represent themselves and still go to the government councils. Because the people that work across as community elects and council elects, they represent certain groups. There is groups that are big enough to be represented, like the Ethiopians, the Zimbabweans, the Sudanese, that have people that the government still looks at, even though they're below the African, they're still recognized as leaders of their own countries because as part of the contract, they're still below something. So they can still receive funds for their community because the community is big enough to be a community of their own and be supported and recognized. So these are the things that are happening behind closed doors. These people that are set in certain roles are holding those roles because it benefits them more than it benefits the community. And that's sort of a sad thing because if the community sort of knew how much they were able to get, some people will not be in the position they're in. There'll be a lot of opportunities given to people. Business open. People can open businesses through the community leaders talking to the right places and actually presenting something that's credible. If you present something that's credible, the government can help you, but only through the means of working with your own community sometimes. If it's involving your community, if you're building a shop for your community, if your community leader says it's for the community, you can possibly get some help and fund for that.
Wow.
These are things that people are not really tapping into because the community leaders aren't involved with their own people. And to separate and divide the community and say, these people get this and this, it'll be hard for the people that only have one or two members of their own country here. There's Egyptians that might only have one.
So going to my point again, do you think it's better that we have our own African community group so it's not so divided in a sense? I think
say
that's
bring everyone
the better way.
together to the same table, unite it all in one. If we have to still celebrate everyone else's individuality, we can do that after. But we must first get united first and help the whole broader African community first because we're all going through the same thing. We're all suffering from the same diaspora. We can talk about the colonialism, the migration, all these things are all things that are affecting all of us. So we must deal with these things first before we can start celebrating our roots. We can still celebrate our roots, not in a way that it steps over someone else's toe. I don't think that being African and me inviting you to my cultural thing and celebrating my cultural dance is in any harm. It's welcoming you and making me, share the same thing. we're sharing something.
Yeah, there's nothing like I think
love that.
Those are nice
we
things.
do our own one with the Tanzanians do their own thing. But
So
have
these
we
are
done
things
any
we can
cultural
still continue
dances?
and do.
We haven't done the culture dance things, but we just try to welcome as much neighbors as we can, the people we know. So, and lately we have a lot of Kenyan, Ugandans and stuff like that. So coming together and, share some experience, culture talk, and especially always food. Food is always talking around.
Food is
So we always do like African dishes and enjoy that. So that's not bad. But the main point is I agree with you too, like to unite the whole Africa will be really the main thing, because we are all far away from home, which is now we are in this place where we call it home. Mm-hmm. In that case, to make it comfortable as much as possible, I think it's the main goal to look after it. And you can't make it a home to feel like a home if you're not united with the people who are actually living in that home. Yep. I mean, in that house. So in that case, like I truly believe, your point, if you agree with that, shout out for that, mate. It's good to unite.
I remember reading about Julius Nyerere, who used to be Mwalimu.
Oh, yeah.
Who used to be the president of Tanzania. And when he first got elected, he made all of his ministers work in a area that was not their tribal area. So basically, there's 120 tribes in Tanzania, right?
No, 220. 220.
220.
Yeah,
I thought you said 120. No. So there's 220 tribes. Yeah. So every single minister of his cabinet was not allowed to work in his own area. He had to work in another person's area, and he was accountable to that area. What do you think of that idea? Do you think that would ever happen in a place like New Zealand, to actually work on our own philosophy, like African New Zealanders, like Africans in New Zealand, their own philosophy and their own thinking around tribalism and how it can actually hinder progress in this country, in this environment?
The hard question is the problem with replicating what you just said is the numbers here is getting people that are credible enough to actually represent another race. That's my question.
And they don't have to represent them. They just have to work with them. They actually have to get to know them.
I think if we could base the fact that everyone has to work with everyone else's race, they have to be involved. Most of their tasks will be involving dealing with other people's races. So that way, there is no exclusiveness, because there will be some races in New Zealand that actually have a vast majority to actually have more candidates put up. Because as much as we could say there's 54 nations or in the continent, we don't have 54 candidates that will come up.
Yeah, I don't even think we've got 54 countries represented here.
So there might be a possibility that this task might be having to be a rotation sort of policy where it comes through and then you can change hands.
Okay, well, with that, are you going to introduce the last song? Me, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you're going to do it.
No, we haven't even introduced our sidekick over here. We've got another, Peter's still around, but, thank you, Peter. Love you, Peter. But today, she's having a break. She's had a wonderful birthday. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Peter.
And she went away to, had a wonderful holiday and everything. But, I had to rope Modi into the job, and he was more than keen. So he's been doing my co-hosting today, because we're going to do this thing on the Blackhouse. We're going to have different people co-hosting every now and again, just to mix things up. Yeah. But our last track, second to last track, actually, it's our third track, is Reza Biza, and he's a Kiwi rapper of Rwandan descent, based in Hamilton, but frequents Auckland and his collective mates from Black City. And with his collective mates from Black City, he is a veteran in the hip-hop scene in New Zealand, with a career that spans over a decade, with many years and experience in his belt. He's a pioneer for a lot of Kiwi African musicians in the hip-hop scene, and the song we're about to play is featuring another Kiwi African artist based out of Hamilton. His name's Nova, and he's from SA, and so this is their song, Composure.
Yeah. It was 3 January, I picked the phone up. Said, hold up, I'm driving, I fixed the phone up. It was bro, he asked if he could roll up. Said, I ain't home, but why you quiet, fix your tone up. That's when the bro paused. And I ain't talking a short pause. At least a 5-second long pause. Yeah, yo, what the fuck is going on, dog? He told me all he heard from the start to the end. In a way, I think that convo was harder for him. That party that she went to on New Year's Day makes some calls to make sure, but she played you, Ray. I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't. I even had the proof I needed. I just wouldn't. Saw signs but chose to ignore them when I shouldn't. I just dived straight in the ocean without looking. Imagine me during my drive home and she in my home and she been acting like everything fine, yo. I'm thinking, god damn, maybe I'm going blind. Or maybe worse, maybe I've been loving a lie, y'all. My heartbeat accelerating quick as my car is. My temperature feel like I'm in front of a furnace. I got another call from my bro, told me slow down. Think about the way it's gonna go down. Should I not feel so much? Should I not feel this real? Will it let me down? Should I not wait around? Should I not wait for you? Why you let me down? Should I not feel so much? Should I not feel this real? Will it let me down? Should I not wait around? Should I not wait for you? Why you let me down? As far as dude go, I ain't got the energy. He probably did me a favor, shit, I might let him be. Crazy thing is, after all of that, instead of telling me, you let me walk around like a fool, like I'm your enemy. Like I ain't help you turn your dreams to reality. Like I ain't hold you down when you weren't hearing from your family. Like I ain't go and get you a job and get you situated. Like I ain't keep my word on all that I initiated. Fuck all that shit I paid for, that ain't a thing to me. Told you I'ma take care of us if you take care of me. But you so busy trying to hide it like camouflage. Got me thinking maybe it's your trauma, got you acting off. Or maybe you just loose. And I'm so naive, I'm trying to give you an excuse. We watching Love and Hip Hop to Harry and Joe. You criticizing, but that's what you were doing all along. Accusing me of bullshit while going through my phone. Why be the ones who guilty, who be always paranoid? All's fair in love and war, but the part that fucked me up is that I introduced her to my daughter. She was A, she looked up to you. She still asks me every day why I'm not with you. I don't even know why I got with you. Should've left your ass in the club instead of fuck with you. You never know the situation you put me between. I nearly turned into a person I shouldn't have been. Back and forth until a Marine. You had sides that to me just couldn't be seen. I really thought that you misschemed. All along you were acting like a movie screen. That old saying goes, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. Why you friends all in the groupie scene? I ain't saying that's you, but that's some shit I should've seen first. Find out your reputation, you know. Did some research. Instead I'm smoking L's while you twerking in my t-shirt. Caught up with that fat ass thin waist, yes sir. Fast forward you in Melbourne acting stupid. Maybe I should go and make a fake account like you did. Maybe I should stop trying to be the bigger man. Niggas still trying to give me love advice like they was Cupid. Quit the lying, telling girls that we still an item. Next time you find a good man, you should get behind him. I learned a valuable lesson and it was perfect timing. At least I gave you my all and that's the silver lining.
Silver lining, time I had to deal with pressure. Candy night, by time I learned a true lesson. Devil on my shoulder, brush him off and count my blessings. Long I'm living, learning life don't learn you many lessons. I used to watch you wipe your nose. How many times you block your blessings, acting like you're not supposed to? Nobody knows. But then again, nobody knows you like I know you. The type of girl you wanna post. The type of girl your mama think you should propose to. I used to think the same, but I was being hopeful. But now I know you and wanna play the game by no rules. Shouldn't I feel this love? Shouldn't I feel this hurt? Shouldn't I feel this love? Shouldn't I feel this hurt?
Welcome back to the Blackhouse. Before we get back into that conversation, there's been a lot of conversation going on in the break, but we're going to do a couple of shout outs right now. First one is tonight at 10 p.m. You can catch Raz Judah and Culture Embassy live at Havana Bar in the city. And also on right now, at Island Bay, there's a beach barbecue. It's being run by Patricia Clentz and friends. So if you got an invite, you're probably there already. And if you didn't get an invite and you're not there already, you probably need to be there. And if it's an invite-only situation, but it's a +1. So if you go and invite someone, then I guess everybody's going to be there.
Yeah.
Because it's Wellington and everybody knows everybody.
And shout out also to Wellingtonians. It's coming. This is a long weekend too. It's a Wellington anniversary. So yeah, drive safe, people, and be careful there wherever you're going. Yeah.
And I would like to also shout out to the brother Tino Wagwan. He's performing tonight at Moon Bar from I think 11 or 12 o'clock. If I get the time wrong, get there early at 10 o'clock so you can get the whole show.
Oh, didn't even know about that.
Tonight he's got a show with a few other boys, so catch the brother down there.
So where was that?
Moon Bar in Redford Street.
From?
Go there early from 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, so that way you get him early, because I think it's about 12 o'clock, but I don't want to get the time wrong.
Okay, That sounds awesome. So now we're going to jump back for this last. We've only got about 5 minutes left before we put up the last track. And basically, we're going to go back to what we were talking about. So we were talking about like bringing the community together. What was it that you were going to say, TJ?
I think with just with the African community, I think it just needs to start the dialogue of just being able to speak about things that they need to speak about, whether it be about mental health, whether it be about the issues that are happening in different communities. I think they just need to address those issues. You can't be waiting 5 years on because you're going to be 30 and you still haven't done anything. I think we just need to start talking with people in different communities, start talking with other people. I think that's
good point, man.
Me and him are almost brothers, but we know each other. And the thing is, he's saying until you're 30, I am 30. That's the thing. That's what it clicked on me. There was something that happened last year. It clicked on me. I had no more time to wait for elders to try and tell me something. I had to sort of start speaking to people that were doing things for the community, because I want to find out what they were doing for the community, because if they're doing something for the community, then I can say, okay, someone is doing something. But if nothing's going on, then we need to do something. And this is why I've got involved. It's not because I felt as though I'm useful there or thing, but I've seen a lack of people doing anything at all. Yeah. And this is why I've sort of said, okay, we need to do something. If no one's going to say nothing's happening, I'm going to keep singing nothing's happening, and I'm going to find out how far nothing's happening until I get to the government position. Yeah. And that's how far I'm hopefully seeing that the line goes from where the person that speaks to Jacinda is doing what he needs to do down to the person that's speaking to me. So I don't have to chase no one else. If there was someone speaking to me that could speak to Jacinda and pass the message on, I would be sitting in my position doing what I need to and following my pathway in life and probably doing other things. Yeah. But now I'm drifting to this because the void that's been left by other people that should be doing the things they're doing has left a vacancy or a position that a lot of people are chasing and other people are running the other direction. And I'm running this way because I'm used to having a community, and I cannot live in New Zealand without a community. And that's my problem. If I'm going to stay here, I need a community to survive here. And I believe a lot of Africans want the same thing, or else they're going to move. And that's what normally happens. We leave because there is no community. We come back, we hope to try and see a community, but there's a lack of it. We either immerse with the New Zealand community or we try and rebuild our own, and then nothing happens, we go back to Australia.
That does seem to be a repeating cycle too, because I think everybody needs community. I don't think human beings as a species were supposed to survive alone, even though some of us have learned how to do that and manage it. I don't think it's a natural state of being for anyone. I think it's part of capitalism. It's part of living in an aggressive capitalism, especially. You're forced to live in these single flats with a single room and a single bed, and a single car park. It's not like they're saying, okay, we're going to build houses and compounds for your entire community, because that's the culture and the environment that we're contesting, you know what I mean? And I also wanted to ask you, to round this out, because we've got 1 minute to go, what are the biggest issues you think that the African community in Wellington needs to address in Wellington? Go.
Biggest issue is first the void in the community, the leadership void that's like left vacant. Either it needs to be filled in, needs to be reactivated and be happening in front of people invisible. There needs to be an election, there needs to be a meeting, and there needs to be a centralization of all African countries into one form of umbrella where we can actually figure out who's who. as much as people want to know why, we want to know who's who, it's better for us to know who's who so we can relate to you and connect to you. And this is how information is passed by. If there is no connection between the African communities, then how can we say that this information gets to this community if there's nothing to account and no one to relate to? So we need someone or some way of centralizing information back and forth. The same way the government census everyone, we need consensus of who we are.
And that's Mandella's our purpose for the rest of our time on Earth. I don't know what else to say. We're going to go into our last song, and that's our roundout for this week. Our last song comes from Moose. He's been relentless in release of tracks these past few years, proving himself to be a capable MC with a grasp of wordplay and delivery with each song he releases. And the song we're about to play features another African Kiwi artist named Soul, who is based out of Dunedin, and this is their song Frenemies. And I think it's very apt to be the last song of the show. See you next week on the Blackhouse.
You can listen back to an Access Radio show that you love online. Dozens of locally made podcasts are free at accessradio.org.nz.